I genuinely think people who think Rekkles is a better player are on some level, like they're on some level mentally ill. Like they actually need to have someone study them.
Damn, are we a less now? Are we a less now?
Forgiven?
Oh, I mean,
because here's why. Listen, it's not that one was like one strong in lane, one strong in fights, one does this, one does that. No. Forgiven is the best laning ADC maybe to ever play in the West ever. Like unbelievably good in lane. So he's already doing the job of ADC in lane. And then in team fights, is Rekkles better than Forgiven in team fights? Bullshit. Rekkles always had way better teams, and he was almost never even the primary carry. Right, this is going to be episode 70 of Listen Loco. Easy to remember which episode this one is, isn't it, Loco? The number, quite easy to remember for this one, if you know what the absolute train wreck that was, whatever we attempted to do.
Wait,
for episode 69. It was all right, mate. It wasn't as funny as you thought it was going to be, was it? Like, let's face it. I mean, to be fair, I'm just going to say it. It's the sort of show it is. Did talk too much, didn't she? So
what? I thought she talked just...
Nah, bit too gobby for my liking. She was all right. Seemed like an okay person. I'll stress that, okay person. I'm not going to go overboard with it. Wow. But whatever. It's been and done now. It's gone. Now we're back to real League of Legends, talking about the games, teams who play the games. Unfortunately, it isn't, as I mentioned on that last episode, it is like a week where there aren't fresh games for us to talk about. The last time LEC actually played was like 2 weeks ago. They're going to play in the upcoming week. And obviously, Duke's team, for example, wasn't at Rift Rivals, so we only saw 3 LEC teams. So what I think for this episode, my thoughts going in is we'll talk about all the teams, but we'll maybe do it a bit more general, or we'll pick some specific things and hopefully have some cool digressions and go off into those. Mm-hmm. Not least because our guest for this episode, Loco, is Duke. That's right, we've got world champion SK it's actually just a guy who's like a French guy who knows Zabatine and somehow got a job as a coach. I assume you must have been... Were you a commentator at some point in time, by any chance, Duke?
Yeah. I started as a commentator at O Gaming.
Have you noticed, actually, a lot of coaches in the French esports seem to come from the commentary scene first, like they're the analyst or something like that?
I mean, Zab, for sure. I mean, the thing is, Zab and I are really good friends, and I would say that he kind of followed because he saw an opportunity too. Okay. But if you look around, there was also Crepo who did the same for a short time. Defisho, I mean, he's not really a coach, but and I know that also some coaches kind of try to do, some casters try to do it and have not yet achieved to do it. But I think it's kind of normal path considering how is it to be a caster where you invest so much time trying to analyze the game, and at some point you just realize that you can't really go further as a caster, and even if you go further, is it worth for you to have this knowledge if you are just casting? So might as well try to coach.
Wow.
Oh no, I definitely agree with you there, man. Like, what? One of the things that I've actually said. What do you mean?
I think coaching's a miserable job. Coaching is so much pain,
No, his point
stress.
there was a very good one, though, which is that you are naturally going to get the same sort of person who would be a caster might also become an analyst or a coach, because it's the same sort of job. You are watching all the teams, you're studying the teams, you're trying to break them down. Yeah, coach is more specific to your team, but you also scout the opponents. So to me, it's very similar, because I know in the early days of commentary, actually, when people used to do interviews and ask people in League of Legends or CSGO, like, oh, why don't you think there are more coaches? I always used to say, the problem is this kind of person who ideally should do that job probably is the best, color commentator in the world or the best analyst in the world or something, And at that point in time, the money and the stress didn't make it worth it. It's actually way better to just be an analyst and have a cool time and just get minorly flamed, not flamed every week, win or lose, as some coaches get. So, the reason why I think this will be interesting, one Loco, is much like Zabatine, Duke is one of these people who he's not afraid to do the Twitter clap back. Like, he will, if he sees something he doesn't agree with, he'll come in there, he'll give his own opinion, he'll battle. Half the time, let's be real, he is a coach, so he does do what a lot of coaches do, which is like a solid 40% of Twitter is just trying to make their players like seem better than they are, or explain why they weren't actually that bad when they lost the game. Like, doing good work, PR, marketing work. It's a very, very valuable job, Perception management, I believe it's called, in the sinister world of politics we live in now. So let's talk about some of this, okay, Duke, because there's a couple of big topics that always come up when you talk about your team Splyce. And I'll give you the spoiler. One of them's Kobe. So we'll do that one first, shall we? So it basically goes like this. Like, if you notice, by default, if you are a top team, top 3, top 4 team, your players are basically the ones eligible to be voted, all LCS team, etc. In theory, you should be able to vote if you're lower, but I understand why it's more tenuous. So mainly, when it comes to the all LCS rankings, people are just looking for who's the top 4 teams, right? Who do I think's the best AD carry here, who's the best jungler here? And obviously, you always get discussion amongst fans and other analysts, like, were these the right ones? Did they over prioritize one person? A famous example would be, did they just pick everyone who was on the dominant team? That can sometimes be a problem. Mm-hmm. Right? In your case, Splyce was a team that was at like kind of the bottom of that range. Kobe was the guy who had the big pop-off performances and the big stats. Do you think it was fair that he's considered an elite AD carry in LEC?
I mean, I think it's fair, obviously, that he's considered an elite AD carry. The question is it fair that he was considered the first AD carry in Europe? I think, and for me, at first, I would say that AD carry, from my perspective, is the role that is the hardest to find. I mean, you can find differences, but for me, it's the least meaningful role in the game in general. But I think for Spring Split, Kobe had for sure a standout performance. I think he was the main carry in Splyce, as he has always been in a sense.
Sure.
And he has always been extremely good at mid-late game team fighting. He doesn't have like crucial mistakes that lose you a game, which is super important as an AD carry. I think he deserved the first spot in Europe for the Spring Split. I think if Upset, if Schalke didn't totally collapse for the second half of the split, Upset could have gotten it too. But the thing is, the team was did so bad for the second half that it's hard for them to get it. But I think Upset had a good performance. And Perks was not there yet, I would say, to challenge this title, because it was only regular season, it was not playoffs.
Yes.
So Perks was not there yet at the time. And Rekkles, I mean, they had the shaky first half of the split, and the second half, the thing is they were winning through bot, but the thing is, as soon as the enemy team just crosses the half of the lane, there is double TP from Nemesis and Bwipo.
Sure.
So and he plays with Ilisang, so what can be attributed directly to Rekkles or to the rest of the team?
It's tough to figure out, how much was just him being a stud. And yeah, like you say, if you were the AD carry, it's a dream setup pretty much.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the first criticism I would have is then, what do you think about his laning? Where would you place him in just terms of pure laning?
I think Kobe's laning can be... I think he's not the old school AD carry that, for example, Forg1ven, that would have the mindset to always go in, but sometimes it backfires a lot if your team doesn't play around you, where you try to punish for everything. But the thing is, he can do it, and it really depends on the support he's playing with. For example, last year, we had pretty weak laning phase. I mean, we had weak laning phase pretty much everywhere. This was the problem, I think, in our team last year. And now that he has way more synergy with Northgren, I think his laning phase is way better. I think they, for example, for the first half of the Spring Split, they were solo killing a lot the opponent 2v2. But I think it's really I think it's more a question of synergy with Kobe. I wouldn't say he's a dominant AD carry, but the same way that I wouldn't consider, for example, Rekkles a dominant AD carry in laning phase. But I think he's really solid, and he can go aggressive if he learns the matchup properly. He has the tools to do it. It's more a question of mindset, and I think we are getting there with Kobe.
I mean, the mindset thing is definitely something murky. I guess what I would be judging him on is the product, right? That's what the public sees. I'm sure you see a lot more of what he does in scrim, what his mindset is, but we can't judge him on that. The only thing the public can really judge him on is the product that's given. And for me, Kobe's laning has been pretty lackluster compared to the other AD carries we compare him to, Perks, Upset, even Rekkles to a certain degree.
I mean, have you when we played G2, for example, they were dumpstering the 2v2, so against Perks. So again, I think it's more a question of matchup and how we play around. I mean, I guess it's not the most shiny duo, but they have also to play according to how we play as a team. Honestly, I don't think he's I wouldn't say that it's his first strength, maybe, but I think he can improve on this for sure. But I don't think he has been doing bad, specifically in laning phase recently. I mean, that's not at least what we are. I think he has some flaws, but he has way bigger flaws than laning phase. From my perspective, I mean, I don't think he, again, not outstanding laning phase. I think he can be better, but I don't think that's an issue. Not worse than people like Rekkles or I don't know, or even Perks. I don't consider Perks that insane in laning phase either.
Okay, here's the thing. I'll definitely give you the caveat that, like, to be fair, Spring Split was in a really weird position for AD carries in Europe. Like, I mean, a lot of the top ones, as you said, there was reasons as to why they weren't like the standout player or anything. And then if you look across the rest of the league, who else is the competed? Patrick, Upset, like these people were exactly, again, they were not going to win the MVP. So it's not like it was a role that was so heavily contested. So I think that's not that unfair on that one. But I would ask you this, right? If you look across the map, like Splyce is famous for games not ending early, for not being the team that just batter someone at 20 minutes, right? So if we look at the map, right, Vizzy Chachi, at the position he's in his career, he's a very well-defined character. You know exactly what he's going to do. You know exactly what his champion pool is. He's not going to smash 1v1. He's going to do all right, and then he's going to join in the team fight. You look at the bot lane, as Loco said, the laning stats weren't that great in the last split overall. And then in the mid lane, as far as I can tell, Humanoid seems like a pretty aggressive player. Seems like a guy who wants to be like a pop-off bin, but he just doesn't have the team for it because his jungler is a power farmer. So if you have this sort of team setup, right, doesn't some of that come from Kobe? Like, surely if Kobe was some super powerful AD carry, you could be the guys making shit happen in the mid game more often.
I'm not sure I understand the question you have about Kobe specifically here.
Basically, to me, if I look at the map, right, the only player I see that is like a really dominant player outside of the team fight is Humanoid. Like, Xerxes is inside a fucking fog of war. The support's with the Kobe, keeping him alive. Vizzy Chachi just plays Poppy and sits in the lane halfway up, hitting minions. Like, where, you know, what do you expect? Obviously, the game's going to go late, and then the AD carry gets to kill everyone with the Sivir fucking ultimate or whatever.
I mean, I think you are saying some truth about the team, but I think it's not related to why the games are going late in general, especially because the reason why games are going late also varied depending on the moment you are talking about. For example, Spring Split against last year. But just on the first topic, on the aggressivity of the player, for sure, Humanoid is the most aggressive player we have on our team, maybe too much sometimes. Chachi, I would say it's more his champion pool. I think he's actually an aggressive player, but he is more that he doesn't have a hard carry champion pool. He's the solo laner that has the top laner that has the most solo kill in his career in Europe, and also that got the most solo kill, I think. So he tries to force the 1v1 a lot. And for our bot lane, I would say North Korean is pretty aggressive. And Kobe will just will follow. But for example, in the first half of the Spring Split, again, they had a lot of solo kill 2v2. And for Xerxes, I think Xerxes has and that's something we have been working a lot with him, and I think we made some improvement, especially this summer, is that he had the old syndrome of the old jungler back when the jungler was, when you could play for jungle. For example, like junglers like Broxa, like Max Law, all those junglers that were trying to outpath the enemy and try to outfarm the enemy, and actually be relevant going out of the jungle at 10 minutes, being really fed, while at the moment it's really worthless to play like this. Yes. And a lot of junglers had a tough time adjusting to it, Xerxes being one of them. But again, we keep working on this all the time and try. Like, for example, a player like SafeMade showed new ways to play the game. I think Broxa adjusted to it really well in the summer split. And I think I would say Xerxes is recovering, but Xerxes as a player is extremely dominant player. But it's just that he has the old way to be dominant. But I think among the junglers in Europe, he might be one, if not the most talented jungler. From my perspective.
I mean, I will say, even though, as you outlined there, even the company you were naming him in, Max Law, Broxa, these are players actually were considered to have dropped off this split, this season rather, and had some issues in the spring. I would agree. Xerxes needs to be given like the asterisk that he wasn't bad. Like, even though I didn't like stylistically, I wasn't a huge fan of his style. He was certainly one of the best junglers last split. I think that's pretty fair to say if you look at the games. He was doing his job when he got that farm, and when he got to the fights, he was pretty fucking good.
He had a really good performance in the early game, but again, I think his way to see the game was sometimes wrong, and even if he tries, and when he's actually on, for example, there was a game against Rogue where we were playing LeBlanc, he accepted to play Lee Sin because he has really good Lee Sin, but sometimes he doesn't want to play it on stage, and he accepted to do it, and he just steamrolled the game. I mean, it was Rogue, right? But he steamrolled the game just by himself. And I think when he has the confidence to do it, for example, another example of it was in Gauntlet last year against G2. We wanted him to play Olaf, but he's exactly the kind of champion that he should be strong on. And he had the choice between Olaf and Zac, and he chose Zac, and we lost against Olaf. And then we tell him, yeah, you should play Olaf next game. And he plays Olaf, and he solo carries the game against G2. And the next game, they first picked Olaf, actually. But he has that in himself. I think it's more a problem of confidence and adaptation. And he can do it, and he showed that he could do it.
Oh, one thing on the... or go ahead.
No, I just agree with you with what you guys see. I guess that, again, I'm not saying that everything is ready for sure. Like, we are not G2 coming with a roster that is already ready to win Worlds week 1. But, again, those players, I think it's not black and white about those players. I think they can reach this level of aggressivity, for example, that we couldn't with last year's roster.
One thing regarding Kobbe, it kind of plays into the overall playstyle. The way you guys play, where bot lane is often not overly aggressive, bot lane just farms, and then you guys get into mid and late game situations a lot. Is that an overall thing like you guys do on purpose, like you directly coach and do? And also, if that's the case, then it really becomes hard to judge Kobbe, because he's playing in a very different meta, and he's playing in a very different situation than most AD carries would be in. Like, most AD carries don't get to go to mid and late game and constantly team fight over and over again, where it's going to help your DPM stat a lot. It's going to help. It basically makes it's a dream situation for AD carry, like going into team fights again and again. It's like going back to season 4, season 5 meta.
And we get into this situation a lot for various reasons, but I think one of the main reasons I would say is it's just the comfort champion pool of those players. Just push, and as a team, so Kobbe, even if Humanoid is really aggressive, he also really likes mid-late game scaling champions himself. Same for Zux.
Is he actually the one who picks the Azirs and all these champions? Because as you say, yeah, they look more like, as an outsider, like I would have assumed he's getting told to play those for the comp.
I mean, of course, we do draft together, and that's my responsibility to do draft. But I take into account the champion that they can play, they are strong with, and we end up with this, like the I would say the champion pool we have, like, that we show on stage is the champion pool we are the most comfortable with. So it's of course a question of playstyle, but it's also a question of comfort. Like, just for example, last year, the reason we were going late all the time was just because we had bad early game. Like, we had, I would say, maybe the worst laning phase in Europe, and so we were behind all the time after the early game. And in Spring Split, the reason we were going late is that we had actually a really good early game. It's just that we had terrible mid game in Spring Split, and I think it was not a question here of this, like, champion pool or anything. It's just that our game knowledge was not good enough, at least on stage, to be able to finish the game. And at the moment, I think we are a bit in between. We are slowly adapting in the mid game, but our champion pool is still a bit leaning a bit towards late game, which is a problem, especially in Europe, when you have teams like G2 or Origin that are totally the opposite, that want to only play for prio, which is a good way to play the game, really interesting way to play the game. But it's also a way to play the game that doesn't forgive any mistake.
Okay, what did you mean when you said earlier, like maybe Humanoid's a bit too aggressive, maybe?
He's a rookie, right? So it's his first year, and he had to improve on a lot of aspects, whether it was, like, he's extremely talented, maybe one, if not the most talented player I've ever coached. But first, I think it's more behavior, mindset-wise, how to behave in a team environment. I think it took him some time to adapt, how to be able to receive criticism, how to express his own thoughts, even improving in English, those kind of stuff. And as a player, he does. Sometimes it's tough for him to think. I have 90% chance to kill this guy, but there's also 90% chance that his jungler is in this bush. But if I play this situation crystal perfect, like absolutely perfect, I will kill him. But the thing is, the risk against reward is not at all in our favor. Sure. But he will do it because he thinks he can do it, which I think is a really good mindset for sure. Like that, I think all the best players in the world have this mindset. But the problem is the very best players in the world have this mindset, have the talent to execute it. But sometimes they will just understand that the risk against the reward is too big for him to take a play, and that's a play like Faker, for example. He can pull it off, but sometimes he is disciplined enough to not do it. And to not
That's
try.
actually though where I kind of feel like it must be so hard to coach young players now because of caps. So I don't know if you know this, right? But if you follow basketball at all, there's a famous concept called the Steph Curry effect, which is that since he's so amazing at shooting 3-pointers, and not just 3-pointers, but even if he's like being guarded and it's a bad shot, his stats would be amazing. So what happened was, because his team basically said, well, if he's that good, just pump the volume up, let us shoot as many as he wants. And the problem is, it meant that every kid who was learning basketball at this time in school just started wanting to be a 3-point shooter and shoot 3-point shots all day long. Well, the problem is, like you say there, that what you were describing, if we go back 2 years, I'd agree with you. I'd say to a player like that, listen, there's a difference. When Rookie or Faker do it, they know if there's like they can get away with it and they're going to make sure it works. But the problem is, like, Caps still does those like bad all-ins and even dies from them, and sometimes they lose the game. And he's called the best Western player, so it must be tough to get through to players, right?
I mean, of course, it's always tough, especially when he's so young, and I would say he has a strong view about the game and strong opinions. But in the same way, Caps is really reckless in the way he plays, but also he's not selfish at all. Like, he's sacrificing a lot towards to help the team winning condition. If Winder is in a carry matchup, he doesn't care about just leaving his lane and being 40 CS behind. And that's something that is kind of at the opposite of what you would expect from a player that is as good as Caps and that always plays on the edge like Caps and always want to 1v1. So I think actually you can also, like, players like Humanoid can learn a lot from Caps and his ability to just serve the team at any point, even if sometimes he goes crazy. But usually when he goes crazy, I mean, sometimes he loses the game out of it, of course. But when he goes crazy, the rest of the team is here to back him up afterwards, and he's not necessarily the winning condition. So I think he's good enough, and his teammates are good enough to do it, to allow him to do it.
So
along those lines, do you have a question, Loco?
Yeah, so I heard something really interesting from David Lim, like long time back when Spring first started. He said there were 3 rookies available: Nemesis, Humanoid, and Abadage. And all 3 European teams, like, needing mid laners or needing new mid laners, like, went in order in terms of, like, I guess importance or money or fame or just ability to pick up players, and it went Fnatic, Schalke, and Splyce. And then the 3 pick order was Nemesis, Abadage, and then Humanoid. In your opinion, first of all, is that true? Like, did the ordering thing happen like that?
I mean, we didn't even call Nemesis or Abadage.
Okay.
Like, we were not really interested in Nemesis. I mean, I think he was good. First, we knew that a lot of teams were trying to get him, and we didn't think he
just
was
less likely he'd be free, right? If they're all arguing for him.
I mean, we could just make a bid, but we thought that then the bidding would be too much compared to the worth that we were thinking he was. And I think he was really good, but we didn't we saw Self-Made more as the standout player from this team more than Nemesis when we were scouting Mad Lions. He was good, but we felt like he doesn't. Like, we saw more potential in Humanoid, more because of we were looking basically since last year we struggled a lot on our laning phase and our ability to be a bit more explosive individually. We looked that's exactly what we were looking for during the preseason scouting, and Humanoid was kind of the pure talented mid laner that always goes for the big plays, and sometimes it fails terribly, but that had this talent, and we were confident in our ability to use this talent to make him a great player. And so no one was contesting Humanoid, so it was our first choice anyway. So
looking on it nowadays, like, with the information you have, do you think Humanoid is the best out of the 3? And would you make that same choice again, like, if you had choice of all 3?
I think it's hard to say who is the best. I think they have different roles. I think the most solid player at the moment, I think Nemesis is the one that fulfills the most what the job he has in his team at the moment, because his team is really solid, and for obviously Fnatic are doing great, and he does exactly what they are asking him to do, and super reliably. In my opinion, I think Humanoid is the best player among the 3, but sometimes he will look bad. I would say that he's less consistent at the moment than Nemesis, so it depends on what you are looking for. But I think his highs are higher and his lows are lower. But I'm confident in his ability to have more and more highs and less lows.
Okay.
And I think he's worse than the other 2.
What do you think, Duncan?
Okay. I personally would take Humanoid out of the three. I think he's the best. I also think if you go back in time now, listen, I can't blame people. You can never know how a player will transition to pro player. But going back in time now, whoever got Nemesis 100% should have just got self-made as well. So for Fnatic's case, if they wanted to keep Roxage, forget about it then. Another team should have done it. I think those two combined should have been taken, especially if you consider the power of jungle mid. Like, I think that would have been an amazing setup for any team. So I think it's just one of those examples of where everyone was gambling. There was no obvious choice. There was no, like, none of them were caps, you know. There was no player who was like, oh my God, this is going to be so sick. Another angle I want to take, though, is I want to ask you about this, Duke. So since your team isn't at the moment playing like all these other teams that accelerate the game and, 10 minutes, 15 minutes in, there's 11 kills on the board. What do you think's happened in League? Because like when you were saying there about Caps will be unselfish and roam, he doesn't care if he gives up a few waves just to go and get a kill for Wonder, right? In the old school way of thinking about League of Legends, that's actually incorrect, that play, because like I'll give you listen, I know very well as a student of the game of Froggen that roughly 15 CS equals the gold for a kill. So if you give up more than 15 CS, you have to ask yourself, is that kill actually worth it that you roamed to get? So the question I have basically is, in the current game, is it the case that a specific matchup or a specific player, if you can get that guy a kill ahead, it's worth just giving up the CS? Like, on what circumstances is this worth it? Because obviously to a fan, it looks just cool that you're roaming and getting the kills, but mathematically, it doesn't always add up, you know?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like it highly depends on the players and the champions. If you are playing, I don't know, if two teams are playing, I'm just saying random shit, but if two teams have like wave clear carries, like you have Severe Anivia against Ziggs. I'm throwing random shit, but you can find the champions in the meta that fulfill the same rule against Ziggs Caitlyn. And this is going to be a farm fest where people are wave clearing on one side, and on the other side there is a Fura against Kemi matchup or whatever. This means that for between 20 and 40 minutes, the game will be all about who has pressure on the side, while the rest of the 2-4 are wave clearing. And so giving a kill on the Kemi or the Fura will totally change the aspect of the game for the rest 20 minutes. And just a slight edge that you can give on such a skill matchup will totally change the afterwards, because if you get an advantage, then you are more likely to get more and more advantage for yourself, and then you snowball your side lane, and then you take control of the game just by playing a side lane. Just for example, I think it was IG against SKT recently, where you had Zershai playing Nico, and he snowballed the early game just out of one play, I think, and they only played for him. And at some point, he was so big that he was just taking over the game just by the pressure he had alone on his side. It's really rare, I would say, through the top lane. I think only top teams can actually play through top lane successfully, at least, because Vitality also played through top lane. But it can be the case, yeah. So you just have to identify what is exactly your winning condition, draft-wise and team-wise, and play through it a lot. I think Fnatic and G2 are excellent at doing it, for example.
What do you think on this, Loco?
What, playing through top lane and then it being harder?
No, like the concept of like listen, it was because people used to only stay in lane, then everyone just said 24/7, like, you should just roam, and if you're mid lane, you should always just roam, and why aren't you roaming and getting a kill elsewhere? It's like, that doesn't actually even always mathematically make sense, Look. So what do you think of where the game is currently at? Because obviously nowadays, some of the top teams go fucking ham roaming all day long.
Well, just bottom dive plays got much stronger, and early game jungle priority meant a lot more. Like back then, like jungles weren't very goal dependent, and they weren't very goal efficient. Like you play junglers, like what were like junglers being played? Like you would play junglers that are being starved, but nowadays like it's really strong when junglers get their first item, and whenever you do roam and then you get that bottom play off or you get that top play off, the kill plus the plating means so much now. Like you just get so much more from a kill than you used to. Like Scuttle Crab, Jungle Invade, it's not just like, is it a kill versus 15 CS? It's more so, is it a 15 CS plus kill, better reset timing, turret plating, like Jungle Invade, Vision? Like, so it's hard to just weigh it as like, is it 15 CS versus a kill? So that's why.
No, my point when I said that, Loco, is other people don't even consider that side. They act like, well, it's always worth it if you get the kill. It's like, but is it though? Like, how many CS did you give up? Like, what does that mean for your matchup? Like, to me, I think they're just tunneling they're watching the best players in the world pull the play off correctly, and they're like, that was correct. It's like, if I paused that and asked that fan, he'd have no way of explaining to me like what the margin was like, what's on their side, what did they lose, what's the equivalent. That's why you see players where someone goes for it and they get the kill, but they burned like 2 of their flashes, the ultimates. Like sometimes it's not worth it. Like the kill alone is not worth it always. That will always be the trap I feel fans fall into, because in your brain, if you watch any other esports game, normally if you kill the opponent, you did the ultimate success. It's Counter-Strike in some other fucking game, but League is different in that sense because it's obviously all about managing the map and your resources as well.
Yeah, there's so much context that goes into it. Getting over-investing for a top lane kill when Dragon is up, or over-investing for a bot lane kill when Herald is up. Yes, like there is context that has to be taken into account when you look at like, was it worth to go for that kill?
What about when you said earlier, Duke, that you thought that it was a passing comment, but you said that you thought that ADC is the least impactful role in the game? Like what factors are contributing towards that? Because I think if you look in general, you do see a lot of teams that their best players, the mid laner again, and like this sort of a setup. So why do you think it's not as powerful in the current meta?
I mean, it's not in the current meta. It has been like this for years now. I would say that ADC in general have just lost power season after season with the power creep, mobility creep, because the game. Like the thing is, the game increased the speed with which the champions are traveling, or the spells are traveling in a sense, right? And the thing is, the range of the ADCs is their advantage, but their range is only relevant compared to the speed that people are taking to travel that range themselves. So because the speed has increased, their own range is less relevant. That I actually wrote an article 3 years ago about it, and mentioning that there should be an item that increased the range, and 6 months later they released the rapid fire cannon, which is exactly what was needed, but it's still kind of small. The same way that, for example, Tameken's only purpose in the meta is to make half of the old champions still playable. Else the champion like Varus, Ashe, etc., they are barely playable in the current meta. And outside of it, aside of the fact that AD carries lost a lot of power, I think that it's also that you have very little agency on the game as a player, which means like you will do some DPS because that's the goal of the champion, the champions in general, the role. But I would say that all the top tier, at some point, unless like you are really bottom tier AD carry, you can make slight difference on how you do DPS, how you're gonna do a bit more auto, how you're gonna dodge skill shot, and it can be really important from time to time. But on average, it's not like you are gonna be super playmaker on the map. You're gonna move all the time. You can be a short caller, but as a champion, you are not gonna roam all the time. You're not gonna dictate plays with your TP. The mid laner has because how the map is designed is at the center of the map, so he will always be going from one side to the other. Same for the jungler. The support roams a lot. The AD carry, he's just kind of sitting there, and he can impact the map, but he's usually, I would say, a good AD carry would look good when his team is doing good, and he would look great. But if his team is doing bad, he would just look bad. But it's really rare nowadays that just an AD carry is just solo carrying his team, or the best player in his team in a team that does well, for example. Like, for example, Upset couldn't do much when Schalke was doing bad. He just looked like he was doing bad himself, but was he bad? I don't think so. So yeah.
What do you mean by the travel speed of things getting faster? Because I had like a really different take on it, so I'm kind of curious to hear yours. Like,
it's hard to say. The thing is, it's a bit hard to explain in English, but like the distance, like range is a distance, right? And distance only matters if you compare like this. Like the speed is distance divided by time.
Yeah, so, travel time. Yeah.
So sorry, you
travel time. Like how long it takes to travel.
Time. Yeah. Whether it's the travel time of your own spell, or even the champions, like a dash or whatever. And the reason range was worth for an AD carry is because they had their whole range that kept them safe, and the admin needed to travel this range. And before, when Alistar was supposed to be a super good engage back in the days, this was pretty hard to close the distance. But now when you have Aurelia that can just like dash 5 times and then ult you and then I'm over exaggerating, but you understand what I mean. Like what I'm saying is that there are more tools to close the distance, to be faster, to close the range, which makes the range of the AD carry less meaningful.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm really clear.
No,
I think it makes sense. So, if you even just look at the stuff that's being played nowadays, like RE, Aatrox, like it's a nightmare trying to be an AD carry in the team fight now.
Well, my thing was not the speed of the dashes, but how the dashes aren't really gated by cooldown like it used to be anymore. So like the bruiser champions, like they would get a dash, and if they miss their dash, they would be fucked. But nowadays, like these champions have so much gap closers, like it doesn't even fucking matter. You have stuff like Akali. Like Akali has how many dashes? You have stuff like Jackson Renekton with Shojin Spear, the ultimate cooldown reduction.
Yeah.
Most notably Irelia. Like all these champions have infinite dashes, where as an AD carry, if you outplayed a bruiser by flashing their dash or like walking forward when they dash towards you, so you artificially created a gap like that, then you'd be fucking them. Like you get to auto attack for free, but that cooldown and that window just got so much shorter. So yeah, it doesn't even matter when you outplay. It's just so hard to consistently output damage as AD carry.
Yep.
I also feel like, to be fair, like because of how many teams run TP all over the map now, it's also a nightmare trying to have even a 2v2 fight if you're in the bot lane. Like even if you look like you're winning it, if that guy times the teleport just right, he just comes in and gets a free kill behind. So for all you know, maybe you got slightly ahead and then you put the top laner ahead or something. Like it's hard to calculate that if you're going into the play and you're already farming as well.
Yeah, I mean, for example, that's how we played against Fnatic in the best of 5 that we lost in Spring Split. Is like, it's not that we were specifically afraid of the 2v2 of Rekkles City. They're really good players, but we were not that afraid of their 2v2. But we were so afraid of everyone committing to bot lane 24/7, just having Bwipo and Nemesis sacrificing everything to TP bot, that our whole strategy in this best of 5 was just try to avoid this. That was the reason that Fnatic were winning recently. And yeah, like as an AD carry, sometimes you can't do much about an Aatrox TPing behind you. Like you have one flash, but that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Life of AD carries.
Well, I got a question for you then. Like, being as you have a connection with some of the people in NA, do you ever watch LCS much?
I watch sometimes when Optic are playing early. I watch them to see my friend. But I would say I watch from time to time. Like I would say if I hear about a big game, I will try to watch it. But I would say since NA is on Saturday night and Sunday night, I would say that they are really my off-duty moments. So I watch them for fun, not really focused on what they are doing. But I watch them.
That's fair enough. It's a for fun region anyway. So no, the question I have is this: people often make the joke that Splyce is an LCS team that plays in LEC because you've had so many games that you win off team fights. You're just about surviving at that mid-game section, which is obviously most notably with Team Liquid, but many other teams in their league, basically. There's only a couple actually ever bother to split push. Most of them play that style. Like, can you explain, as someone whose own teams approach this style, bearing in mind most people flame NA when they talk about their style and say that they're behind all the other regions and they don't know how to play the game. Can you explain what are the reasons as to why, and have you seen any of this when you've watched LCS yourself as to why games develop in that way?
You mean in NA?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about NA or the relation to Splyce to NA?
Like, what do you think of why NA is that way? Would you agree with that characterization? And then is there a reason why Splyce does this even though you're in the region where in theory people don't play that way?
I mean, I think Splyce is like the problems of Splyce, whether they're because going team fight or whatever, has nothing really to do with the problems they have in NA. I think the problem they have in NA is that they lack. Like when you watch an NA game, you don't feel any tension in the early game. For example, you don't feel like any matchup is gonna explode, or you don't feel like people are just jumping on any. Like if the jungler showed up in Europe and there is a stacking wave bot, you know your bot lane is gonna get dived instantly. In NA, they feel like they're chilling, and sometimes a play happen, but they miss so many opportunities that you wonder if when it happens they did it on purpose. And I think like in NA there is no aggressivity in how the game is played in the early game, and people like they kind of have a gentleman agreement to chill, I would say, in the early game, and which leads to mid game, where mid game it's more, I would say for me it's laziness. Actually, it's laziness about it's a global laziness approach. First about training, about how you want to play the game in an aggressive way in the early game, and in the mid game on how you are able to think about more ways to break a game, which leads to like for example the team fight. But even the comps that want to team fight, like you can draft team fight comps and still set up side wave properly, which I think some NA teams do it from time to time, right? But I don't think they have a proper theory behind it. I mean, I'm really impressed when I watch an NA game. Like, for example, teams like G2 or Fnatic in Summer Split last year in Europe, they were actually playing on, even if you can think that the draft of G2 were 1-3-1, they were playing mostly team fights, like they were playing a lot, at least on 2 lanes, which led to a lot of team fight. And this year they play a lot of team fight, even if they don't draft for team fight, which is a bit weird, but that's another topic. But the way to set up the team fight is usually really good, where they are able to first push one side, and then when they know that they have some what I call initiative, or some people could call tempo, but I just don't like that word. When they have initiative, they're able to force at the right moment, at the right pace, the team fight, and it's just more precise and more aggressive. But I think the whole problem of NA is just that it comes from their solo queue. Like everything is from solo queue. Like it's not that European players are born better, but the only thing that European players have before going pro is solo queue. So that's the only thing that can differentiate them from NA players. But that's the reason they are good. And then there is just more competition. So once they are pro, then they just become better and better compared to NA.
One contention I have on that isn't just the solo queue. I would say Master League or National League, whatever you guys call it, I think plays a huge part, because in NA, like our academy really got started, I feel like early this year. Like last year's academy was shit, and before that Challenger League wasn't about growing North American talent. It was more about trying to farm LCS spot. So I think Europe does have better solo queue, but in addition to that, the National League system and giving players like a chance to actually compete in something that matters and like compete with other players that want to get better, other rookie players, and also work with coaches, I think is a huge leg up.
That's for sure. It's a big improvement, but I would say that it's just the nail on the coffin for NA, because like the problem of NA player base being weaker than European player base has been going on for years now. And this, now that we see the academy being like showcasing so much talent in Europe, you just see, okay, now it's obvious, like the NA talent pool just can't compete. But it has always been the case, and now it's just getting worse and worse. I mean, maybe NA can change things in the future, but I think first having a server that is at 60 ping for me is you can't expect anything from that. You can't expect any top player to rise from a 60 ping server.
Really?
I also think, unfortunately, if you have a ping like that, it's also going to encourage people to have like a lazy mentality of like, who cares? It's just solo queue. So I'm not going to play properly.
Exactly. The thing is, you can have really talented players that because they don't care about playing on 60 ping. But the thing is, the 60 ping thing, I think, creates an atmosphere where like people are not able sometimes to play the matchup properly because of it. Some people get frustrated because of it, and it kind of snowballs. Like when someone is not giving his best in a game every game, then you yourself maybe have a tougher time just giving your best. And when you have one guy that is triggered because he has more than 60 ping, one guy that is not one trick Rengar that is challenger and has like 2,000 games of Rengar during this season that no one cares about, and then you are trying to play in the middle of that. Like, what do you do? I don't know. Even at the moment, players are getting frustrated even in Europe about solo queue, but I just can't imagine playing in a favor.
Yeah, thing is, you are right, Loco. It is actually called the National League system. You were confusing EU Masters and that. Like Masters League is just something that you will never get into in solo queue. That's in case you wanted the distinction there. You're diamond for life. Here's the thing, mate. You're like a good traditional housewife. Diamond's the best you're ever gonna get. So just settle at this point in time. Wow. You like that one? Not bad, was it?
We should make a bet on if I hit Masters or if I get that out of Diamond by the end of this season. Like, and
then I have to hire some fucking Reddit PI to go and check if you got boosted or if you win traded. Like, I don't think so, motherfucker. You're not gonna trick me one of those ones.
I'll stream all my games. I
will put my analyst full time on the case.
Yeah, there we go. Right. We've got to have some sort of a fair arbitration system here to make sure you're not beating me out of this.
Okay.
Right, all right, and let's talk a bit more about what. Since you said to you the reasons why Splyce has that style is very different from why NA does, and you give the cultural reasons, etc. Why does Splyce? What would you explain to an outsider? Like, what's happening in these games? Because I have a saying, right? It basically comes actually from the early days with the most infamous late game team of all time, CLG EU, with Forg1ven and those guys. Here's the thing. They would always purposely say in every interview, that isn't our style. Like, we don't actually choose to go to the late game. We don't want to have to fight at 40 minutes with a team fight comp. It's just that that's the way the game happens to go. Maybe it's a matchup. Maybe we're picking champions that don't work that well early. But their logic was the best team in theory would be the team that wins at 20 minutes or 25 minutes, or, because they'd be so decisive. They'd have all their advantages that they'd be able to take care of. So if this happens, on the one hand, you give props to Splyce. You've won a lot of games over the last split and a half with this style, but it surely isn't the ideal style. So give us what factors are causing games to take on this character if you're a Splyce team?
First I told you there is, I think there is the champion pool thing, the comfort. Players like to have this safety net in the mid late game. I think so. There is this. I think there is the fact that our mid game was really shaking in Spring Split, and I think since playoffs and since Summer Split, our games are getting shorter and shorter, especially in wins. The thing is, our wins are totally normal, but the thing is, it's more that our loss take a lot of time, but also because for example, on scrims, my players never surrender. Like we never cut scrims, unless yes, sometimes they surrender when the game is really really lost, and I see no point. But I would say I think we remade one game this split, and sometimes if they play bad, they have to. First, it's for out of respect for your opponent, but also because of you can learn from those moments of frustration when the players are frustrated, when they feel like the game is lost, and on stage, so, you might be in this situation on stage, and 90% of the time you will lose it, but 10% of the time you will be able to drag the game for so long that at some point you just win it. And I don't care if the game take 2 hours every time when we are losing, but if one of the 5 games, out of 5 games we achieve to win one of those must-lose game, I'm fine with it. And I think that the main thing is we don't give up in any of those games, and we just try to always play optimally, even from behind. And I think we learned also how to do it.
But naturally, by not giving up, you're getting more late game practice than you are getting early game practice. Sure. And teams that want to practice early game and teams that want to be more proactive, they'll be more quick to give up games. By practicing that way, don't you guys also reinforce the style you have?
Maybe, but anyway, and we have usually 5 games a day, sometimes 6, depending on I would say at the moment the trend is 5. So for me, it's just taking the best out of those 5 games, but maybe we could do more games and focus on. But also that's something we do. Sometimes we also do streams where I will just work with my academy team, and we'll do instead 10 games a day instead of 5, but only 15 minutes, for example. Or also draft that I write from. Not that much since Mad Lions, but before, where I just write both drafts. I give the draft to my academy, and I will tell them to do stuff that I want them to do for me, and we just focus on the first 10-15 minutes. But I guess maybe there are things that I don't see about my way of coaching or my players, but I don't think it's voluntary. I think if we could play more aggressive, we would. I think we didn't have the knowledge yet, the synergy yet. There is a big thing about Splyce also, because I listened a lot to different podcasts. For example, the podcast you have with Veteran, that is pretty, I would say, aggressive towards Splyce especially during the sprint split.
Hope so.
To the point that we are wondering if Veteran has a personal problem with people from the staff, but. The thing is that when you compare team like Splyce to Fnatic to G2 to Origin, of course we don't play a clean game like they do, but the thing is Fnatic have aside from one player, they are currently the world finalists. G2 have the best lineup ever created in Europe. Origin are almost only super experienced players with a lot of shot callers, and in our team we have. We are a really talented team from my perspective, but we have North Current, who is really new and had a lot of was lacking a lot of game knowledge that he had to learn. Humanoid, that is his first real team, and he has to learn a lot. Zoxe is not he's some kind of a veteran, but he had to change a lot about his way to see the game since last year. And even Chachi was always used in all of his teams as a top laner that has to push until the middle of the map by himself and then move and join the team. That's all. And he didn't have much to think about the game, and we had to work a lot with Chachi also on how. Basically, we had a lot to build with the team, even the synergy between those players, etc. And that's why it just takes time. And hopefully, I can't promise anything, but I see some good improvement day after day, and hopefully we'll get there by the end of the split.
Do you feel a need
I'm going to take on that. For me, I think part of that is it sounds weird, Loco, but believe it or not, I actually give a lot of credit to both Splyce and Team Liquid for being teams that, like, you can almost never blow these guys out. You can't just crush these guys in 20 minutes. Like, even if they lose the game, like, it's hard to put them away. Because that's one of the things.
Yeah, G2 did to both. That's
Listen, occasionally it happens. Like, obviously, it happened in the MSI final. We'll put it this way: if you go and watch the group stage that Team Liquid played, they were hanging in the game better than everyone else against IG. They were doing fucking well, actually. Like, they couldn't. But I also think that's exactly where, like, the paradigm of thinking, people get sucked into thinking there's a correct way to play. And so, in my opinion, the real reason why games get completely snowballed out of control in this meta is because even the team losing in the snowball meta tries to snowball it. They try to get it all back. They try to counter gank, and then suddenly they're going for another push the other side of the map, or whatever. So teams both accelerate the game, even if one's slightly ahead. Whereas the difference is, if the other guy starts trying to accelerate the game and he gets a couple of kills, but then you play conservatively and you play to your edges, you can make the game go a lot longer and you can get a chance to win again. I think a lot of those teams, the G2s, the IGs of the world, it only works because they're the absolute best. Like, that's not actually that great a style to play with a lot of teams.
I think the game is getting a lot more towards the early game for sure, though. So we are trying to adapt even more, especially at the moment. But I think you're right. You're right that some teams just kind of counter aggressivity by aggressivity, which is sometimes it also really depends on the draft, etc. So it's,
of course,
I mean, there are so many factors actually that go into this, but you're right, and I don't think. For example, a good example of this is OG against us, where OG drafted full priority. With Draven, Morgana, like things that you can always draft this and get priority, right? But if you do one misstep, you lose the game. And we just tip it behind them. I don't know, level 5 or 6, they all died and the game was over. And maybe they wish that by doing this all the time, they would be able to perfect this style. But the thing is, there are other things that they won't learn doing this. And will they be able to do it consistently against the top teams? I don't know. So that's just, I think, also a view and approach of the game.
On that line, though, that's obviously one of the tough spots for Splyce, because if I look at the table right now, for me, like, if you've heard the other podcast, you might have heard this rant before. I think Splyce, for me, is the gatekeeper. It's like, if you can beat Splyce consistently, you're ready to join the Fnatics, the OGs, the G2s of the world. If you can't, then you're going to be below. But the problem is, it's tough for me to see how Splyce can itself go up and become third, second, number one best team. And one of the factors why it has to be stylistic, surely. Yes, you're right. I would agree. If I was a general manager and I was picking the players, I wouldn't be picking the Splyce players first from all these 4 teams. You know, I'd pick some of the other teams. In fact, most of their players, I'd say the best in the whole LEC. So it's kind of tough. But at the same time, stylistically, like, Fnatic is amazing in the early game. G2 has some really fucking sick understanding of the early to mid game. If they get to the mid game, obviously G2 is unbelievably good there. All the stats support it. It's going to be hard with your style to beat these teams, right?
But the same way that we beat, for example, last time we played Origin, if you just look at the predictions, only one person predicted us to win, and it was Lore, who is one of my best friends.
Just your pals, right? There we
go. And she asked me the day before, "Are you sure you have a chance to win?" I told her, "Yeah, we're gonna win," and we won. And the thing
inside information.
Yeah, but of course, from the outside, I'm not saying that. Yeah, of course, people should be saying that we are a favorite. But the same way that I heard so many people or read so many people on Reddit saying that we would be 8th or 7th in Spring Split, or by the way, that we'd be 8th or 7th in Summer Split after we were 4th, which was mind blowing, but whatever. And in the end, we ended 4th, and we can keep improving. I agree, we are not the favorite, but it's not like every day I'm working with them and I'm telling them, yeah, guys, make sure to prepare for the late game, and we will bait them until
you're not coops.
We are trying every day to improve our early game, to improve our mid game, and I really believe that this roster has actually a lot of potential. And if things finally click together, and I don't think they are necessarily always game related, we can challenge the top teams. I would not say that I'm confident in beating G2 in the best of 5 by the end of the split, but I'm confident in our ability to beat Fnatic or Origin by the end of the split.
Okay. Right, let's talk about some of the other teams now.
Let's start with Vitality. No, I want to start with Vitality, because for me, Vitality is like polar opposites of Splyce. Like, Vitality is like wild, Vitality is unstructured, Vitality wins off of individual players, Vitality is all about early game priority. Like, what's your take on Vitality, Duke?
So I was really critical of, like, indeed, Vitality, especially last year, were the opposite of Splyce, where they were super chaotic team, super early game focused. And for me, like when they went to Worlds, for me it was mind blowing that they could go to Worlds just by winning one best of 5 in the year against a team that already forfeited, which was Misfits. So I was a bit salty about it. But this year, I think actually in the spring they improved a lot on some aspect of the game, macro-wise, I would say, where before they were just going mid. And I remember playing against them. We were just waiting them mid at some point when we knew like they're gonna come, so just set a trap, they're coming, and they died. But especially I think they improved. But I think their problem is actually that they want to keep this. They want to keep playing the same early game that they did with more macro knowledge. But the problem is that I feel like they just don't have the skill anymore to play this early game. I feel like Jizuke is not impressing anyone anymore. Their bot lane no one is afraid of Vitality's bot lane. Aside from Cabochard, I feel like there is not much threat in this team to play such an aggressive and an all-in style. So most of the time it just falls flat. But to be fair, last time they played, it looked pretty good. So I think the thing is, this team showed that they can have a lot of synergy together, and they can just be on the same page, which is, for example, the reason why a team like Unicorn of Love back in the days, even if they had like terrible draft and they had like the most random macro ever, they could do good things because it's better just to do a terrible play together than just to do 5 different good plays. And I think Vitality is the exact same thing, is that they have a really good synergy together, and if they achieve to kind of improve their early game, they can be a decent team.
I don't know about that last part, like, because that's like that if is huge to me. Like, I don't think they will do. That's the problem as well. Is I see what you mean. Like, actually, obviously, a bunch of them have played together quite a while now, but I don't think actually just player-wise they have good enough players to be a top contender. Like, I don't even blame them actually for that style they had in spring. It was about the only way I could see they could have won any of those games. So I think if they play proper League of Legends, they'll be like the fucking 7th best team or something. There's not really that much kind of upswing for me.
I think in Europe, anyone can be. They can reach playoff. Like if they are at the best form, I think they can reach playoff. I think maybe afterwards it will be harder with the roster they have. But I think anyone can. I would say aside from Excel, I think there is no really bad team in Europe at the moment. I think, for example, Rogue. People have the image of Rogue from last split where they were terrible, and they were terrible. But this split is a totally different Rogue, and I think Rogue are actually pretty good at the moment. So I think Vitality, if they're able to fix the early game, and I would say the laning issues here and there, and they're able to kind of find again this style that they had, where they were all on the same page on this aggressive play style in the early game. I think they have the ability to be a really good, I mean, a decent team. When I say really good team, again, like not everyone can be G2, not everyone can be.
Of course not. No, of course not. And for many reasons. Like, sometimes even if you have the style and the coach, you might just not have good enough players. That can absolutely happen. So, yeah, no, to me, I always try to explain, like, you should always look at the expectations of the team relative to who the team is. So if with their players right now, you're right, making playoffs would be a success. Then maybe winning one playoff series would be like great performance. You know, it's just unlikely that they're going to be deep in the playoffs. Unlikely they're going to perform in that sense. So I think if anything, they locked into whatever the fuck the beginning of spring was that allowed all those crazy cheeses to even work.
Dude, I think you're too kind to Vitality. I think Vitality bot lane is so fucking bad. They're like one of the...
I'm not too kind. I just said they are.
No, not you, Duke. Duke.
All right.
Duke, I think Duke is way too kind to Vitality.
I don't know if you're aware of this, Loco. I'm about to give you a very interesting lesson in politics here.
What
country is Vitality, the organization, from?
French.
No.
What country is Cabochard from?
France.
There we go. He can do it as well.
They actually really don't like me, because when I was salty about it, I said on Twitter that I didn't think that I consider Vitality a top team when they were going to Worlds.
Yeah.
So Vitality's owner was super salty about me saying this among the French community.
Yeah.
So they were calling me a macro guru and saying that it was bullshit. But I mean, I still stand, like, I still think the same. And so I don't have special. It's more that I won't be flaming openly here teams or player that.
If you're a coach, it's just like you're going to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't bring me anything to just say this, and I don't think. And also, as a coach, it's really rare that I think this player is really trash or this, because sometimes I don't think some players are necessarily stuck at a. Sometimes there's something that just prevent them from being good, that are outside of what people can actually see unless you work with them.
Okay.
And so I don't kind of condemn the player at being terrible. But I like to see it go Vitality.
Sure, they're very good. Here's one thing I will say, though. It's one thing to not flame a player, but I'll give you an example of where Riot just forces my hand. Even if I didn't want to flame people, how can I not? Like, when they made that feature, I think it was last Split, where it was the feature about, like, Upset versus Attila, and then they showed, like, Attila's team won the game, and they were like, who wins this one? It's like, is this a joke that we're comparing these two players? Like, these two players are in no sense comparable. And if one of them wins over the other one, I'd start looking at other factors than the 1v1 in that one, you know, like, and I know they did it, like, the one angle that was good for it was, there was two dislikes.
Never shit talk me again, Upset.
That part was good, you know, that part of the storyline was good, but the idea that, like, those two players really are, like, contending for the same spot, they're not in any way. Come on. Yeah. Like, here's the difference. If you put Upset on Vitality tomorrow, they could actually be a fucking half-decent team at a point in time.
I don't think anyone could carry Jack Troll. Oh my god. I think Jack Troll is probably the worst support player in Europe. He makes so much mistakes.
I think Schalke individually have better players at every role, or almost every role, depending on how you rate. I mean, I love Odo. I think he's one of the favorite. I would say that he's one of the players I'm the closest to the player that I've coached in my career. But I think Odo and Kabosha kind of depends on the day, I would say. But the other players, I would say Schalke players are all better at any role. So
sure.
Maybe Vitality could be better with Upset for sure. But I don't think Upset would be enough to carry Vitality.
No, of course not. He's only an AD carry, not a miracle worker. Right. Yep. Here's the question, though. Let's fuck talking about shit teams. Let's talk about Fnatic, a good team. So I have to say, I already from the spring split I think I have to guess, obviously I'm speculating here, but I already give Youngbuck so much credit from the spring split. The way he turned things around, they looked like a team that had no clue what the fuck they were going to do. Half the players in the team looked in a personal slump because the styles didn't work whatsoever. He found all those weird band-aid fixes that got them all those wins, got them into the playoffs. Yeah, they didn't win, but even that was a big turnaround. They looked like they weren't even going to make playoffs. Then you come to this split. The guys, they have amazing early game again. They have all the setup. Then you look at this move he did, bringing in Dan, the guy from the academy team, but then who sometimes plays, but sometimes doesn't. That alone seems to have completely transformed Broxer again. Now he's actually become one of the better junglers. Like, I have to put some of this on coaching staff, surely. Like, what are the odds players figured all this out? It looks impressive to me.
One thing that was really crucial to them that I think they figured out is like, okay, we can't just let Nemesis be. Like, there's so many times where he's playing stuff like Kassadin that needs a lot of jungle helper, that needs the team to play around him, and they just fucking left him on an island, and they're like, chill, dude. Like, Broxah would just farm so much. And then now this split, one thing I think that really changed for them is like how Broxah and Hylissang plays around Nemesis and how Broxah plays around top lane. Like, I think Broxah has just been on fucking fire in summer. He's looked like the best jungler in Europe, and I think he's a huge reason on why Fnatic turned it around. If that's Youngbuck working with Broxah, then more props to Youngbuck. But if it's Broxah figuring things out himself, then like I think majority of the props should go to Broxah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there are two things in the Fnatic story. I think first, their spring split. I think they looked super weak in the beginning, but I think their spring split was really deceptive because they looked way weaker than they were actually at the beginning, because they had it was almost like they were doing terrible draft intentionally to kind of build this story afterwards. But the draft was almost unplayable for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they looked way stronger for the rest of the regular season that they were actually, because half of the games were instantly won after really creative and really good level 1, but they were not that good, and that's why we were not that afraid. We lost to them, but we were not that afraid to play them in playoff compared to OG or compared to Fnatic, to G2, for example. Yeah. For us, like, there was a tier, there was a G2 tier, there was an Origin tier, and there was another tier where anyone could beat anyone, even if Fnatic were the favorite. And now, coming into Summer Split, I agree that Broxah changed everything. I actually know another coach from Fnatic, that is Mephisto, that is also a French guy that I talk to from time to time, and he talked to me about his approach of the jungle and how he wanted to work with Broxah, and I guess maybe he did, maybe Youngbuck did, but indeed Broxah had a big problem. That's exactly what I was talking about the old approach of jungling, that Zerxe had problem with it, where they just farm way too much compared to what's worth
not serving the lane. Yeah,
and exactly, and honestly for me, Fnatic, like Broxah almost solo lost, for example, the best of 5 against Origin. and didn't play and was almost non-existent against us. But indeed, since he came back from Summer Split, he's way better. So I think he kind of changed his play style, and he was forced to change his play style maybe because of this of his substitute. So really, like, props to him and props to the Fnatic staff, I guess, for doing this work. But at the moment, Fnatic have not only do they have a really good early game, but they have a new style because they play totally differently than Summer. I can't talk about it because we played them in 2 days, but they have a totally different style of play that I think is really interesting. And the only funny thing about it is that if you compare it to last year, Spring Split Fnatic was a really bot lane focused team, only playing with Rekkles, who was playing Tristana and was solo carrying game, and it might be the best split Rekkles ever did. And then in Summer Split they were only playing through Caps. And now you look at the Spring Split, they only play through Rekkles, double tipping all the time bot lane. And now they play with Nemesis and Wipo, and they look even better. So it's kind of this. Yeah. It's exactly the same process that they are going through, and I mean, I think now they're way better than in Spring Split.
They have one caveat: when they play Dan, the sub jungler, they play through bottom so much. So maybe if they play Dan, like, that style will change up.
I think he missed so many combos on Jarvan that you can consider that they didn't even play through any lane at this game.
But, also, if I had to guess, like, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure actually in Fnatic, the academy team, I think the ADC was supposed to be like one of the best players they had. So I think that's probably also just coming over from his old team as well.
Sorry, I think it cut a bit.
I believe in the Fnatic Academy team, I think their ADC was one of their best players. So I suspect some of that's probably just carry over from what he did when he was on the National League level. You know, if it's just the way he's played the game naturally, it would make sense.
I think they have. They have Xmati. I think he's really good. I think they have Maggie Felix too, who is pretty good on mid lane, but maybe cool enough. So I guess I mean, they have a really good rookie AD carry for sure.
Sure. Sure.
Do you think
the only question is this though? Basically, Loco was going to ask it here. Can they win LEC?
Yeah, can they overtake G2?
In theory, right? Because here's the difference, right? When you told me before, very, very fair point, by the way. Like, if you look at the other top teams that I'm kind of competing against, you know, like, they have like legendary players, best player in the world. You know, Splyce doesn't have that at the moment. Well, the problem is Fnatic, in that sense, has no excuse for G2, right? They can, in theory, look at all their players, and most of their players should be the absolute best in Europe. So, can they beat G2 and win LEC?
I mean, they can, but I wouldn't bet my money on it.
What's holding them back?
What's holding them back is that you have the
Cap
best roster.
Nemesis.
Yeah, the best roster that was ever created in Europe and in the West in general, and maybe we'll know in the end, but maybe in the world, that is G2. So Caps is the best player that ever played in Europe. Perks, I mean, he's the best individual player. Perks, I think, has, aside from his own gameplay that is excellent, has insane game knowledge and game creativity. Wunder is the best aggressive, like, carry top laner that played in Europe. Jankos is super solid, experienced jungler, and Miki is one of the top two supports with Ilisang. I mean, I think for sure Fnatic have a really good team. They have the chance. They can beat G2. I would say that Summer Split Fnatic can beat G2. Not Spring Split, and not taking it into account this really ridiculous best of one where G2 just hinting. But
that was a stupid game,
in the best of 5, Fnatic can do it, but I wouldn't say they are the favorite. But the thing is, the split is still really long, and I think that some, especially the fans, don't understand is how fast the team level can change. Like, just from 1 week to another, a full team can collapse, or just a team can understand something that will make everything click together, and I just have this loss that make them understand another way of seeing the game. And the game is not over. So at the moment, I would say it's 80-20 in the best of 5 for G2, but I would say that the dynamic is more for Fnatic.
Speaking on the G2 part, you mentioned Caps as the best Western player, or the best player that ever played in Europe. So, like, as a coach, if you could start a team with any player from, like, I guess, like, any season, like any form, like, would you take Caps over anyone?
Again, it's cutting a slightly bit. Can you just repeat?
If you could take any player from any team and you start the team, is that player Caps for you?
I mean, depend to do what? For my personal enjoyment, or to win
to win the best team.
Yeah.
Presumably, I think you mean.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, I think it's to be fair, I think it's Caps or Perks, I would say. In the sense that the thing is that I don't exactly know the shot calling structure of G2, but why G2 are strong is not only that they're insane mechanically, but they have such a good way to understand the game. Like they are like in 2 minutes. Like if you look at the game we lost against them, we are not really behind at, I don't know, 12 minutes, maybe a bit. I don't remember, but it was not over, right? But just in 2 minutes, we all die everywhere. The game is over, and they have something. They have a game understanding. It's beyond game knowledge. It's kind of game sense, right? And who has it the most? Who is the essence of G2? For me, it's Perks. So I would say Perks or Caps maybe. But there are a lot of players for me that are like, even players like Ilisang also have insane game sense too. So it's hard to choose. But if I had to win and I had to pick one player, I would probably pick Caps.
Okay. Even in like, wasn't the year before where Caps and Perks were competing against each other? I know Caps was extremely dominant, but when it came to Worlds, like Perks looked like the better player. Like if Perks went back to mid lane, and if I asked you this question at the beginning of the year, would you still have said Caps?
The thing is, again, it's really hard to say without seeing on any, like without not seeing them talk, behave. For me, there are so many ways you can fit in a team that are not. That's exactly what I was talking to when I was messaging you about Niski, for example, on Twitter. So it's a bit hard to say, but just on paper, the thing is if you are coaching and you think you see Caps, you can imagine that Caps can still improve so much. So in a sense, yes, I would take Caps, but maybe if it was to win now and we have a match in 3 days. For example, we have EU Masters and my bot lane is like Jesus Forg1ven and I have to win in 3 days. Then I take Perks because I know he will just lead the team. But I think Caps, if you remember the games, the in-house games that they were playing in solo queue, etc., he's talking a lot too. He's just seeing everything that happens on the map. He reminds cooldown of everyone, the jungle camp respawn timing, etc. Like even things that have nothing to do with his lane. He's just always keeping an eye on the rest of what's happening in the game, which I thought was really insane. So yeah, it's really, I would say Perks instantly and Caps if I had 6 months.
Okay. Right, there's a couple of points on that one. Like, first of all, I actually do think it's an interesting debate. Like, I know to every pleb fan, they're going to go, it has to be Caps.
Yeah.
He is the best. But, like, actually, I think that's a very debatable one because the difference is, if you look at Caps and you look at Perks, one thing Perks has over Caps is he has amazing consistency. When that guy was a mid laner, what a fucking amazing player to have as your mid laner. Like, you just know how well he's going to do against certain opponents. You know how he's going to do with this matchup. You know how he's going to do at a certain point in the game. Caps is way more, like, yes, the peak is higher, but he can also, we all know, have the shit game where he just feeds completely. Perks is never going to do that. And the problem I have with that whole angle is, I agree, where it's unfair as a discussion is Perks was like the finished product. He'd already played many years at the top with different players around him. He was like the finished player in many ways. Whereas, like, I agree, in theory, Caps could improve because obviously he could just like make less questionable decisions and therefore he'd have a lot of the upside and very little downside. The problem with that one is, though, that's going to be really, really... there's no guarantee that ever happens, though, unfortunately. Like, some of those players do just stay, like, very wild, very raw in that sense. Because I kind of also feel like he's someone who apparently has played a lot and has practiced a lot. So presumably he thinks the way he's playing is correct. He's not like some guy who just came out of solo queue last month and is like, hey, do I have to learn at the pro level? No. So the problem, I think, is this. I think a lot of the players he makes that look stupid, that everyone says like, it's craps or whatever. It's like, that is the same mentality that makes him do the genius player.
Absolutely.
So
that's what I was saying about you.
Yeah, it's tough to tell that guy to cut some of those off because for all you know, if we paused it, I'd tell him don't go for this one, but then he'd pull it off and make it work, and I'd go, oh, actually, you're right on that one. You know, I can see it's tough to coach someone like that.
I mean, I think it can be tough, but that's also the whole point about coaching those players. For me, it's exactly the same with Humanoid, and that's also the interesting part about it. But I mean, I think when you have a player like Caps, you can only he can improve for sure on a lot of aspects, but that are not absolutely not related to his laning phase or whatever. Like, the thing is, League is such. It's just League is a strategy game at high level. It's not. You don't really care that much about mechanics. Of course you do, but at some point you expect the players to do them by themselves. And for me, the biggest part that you have to teach is about communication, mindset, strategy, and I think any player, even in Europe, can improve so much. Even a player like Caps, I'm pretty sure, on those aspects. And yeah, and then I think it's all about afterwards about coaching, about and also about how the players are ready to improve on those. That's the problem with pro players in general, is that pro players are usually not really ready to do what's needed to be the best version of themselves. And I think that's another topic, but I think that's the main problem for pro players.
By the way, that's also another area I think Perks gets the edge over Caps, which is that if you look at Perks, his game knowledge for someone who's played the roles of mid and ADC seems absurd. Like, his understanding somehow of where the other lane can make a play, or when we should all group and do like a crazy skirmish, is ridiculous. Like, I've never seen anyone who played ADC who was like that.
Also, the big thing for me is like Perks has this legendary RNG performance, like that best of 5. Like, I mean, people talk about like Uzi choking, RNG choking, and Yarn and Heimerdinger, but that for me is like, holy shit, like Perks like solidifying himself as one of the best mid laners in the world. And I don't think Caps has had that kind of performance in a best of 5 versus such a top tier team yet. So like, yeah, so for me it is definitely like a discussion, and it's not just, oh, insta-lock Caps, like why are we even having this discussion? I think Perks definitely made a name as like, I am one of the best League of Legends players in the world, like that year in that semifinals.
Thing is, though, I can actually segue this topic into talking about G2, because here's the question I have for you, Duke. I've noticed, because G2 have tried so many crazy... is he frozen? Oh, sorry, I thought you froze a second. Because they've tried so many like unusual picks, and obviously like even sometimes half-jokingly they've picked Pyke in every single fucking position in pro player. They've done a lot of stuff right that in theory you wouldn't do if you were only trying to win every single game. The problem I have is this, is sometimes they win and they claim, haha, oh, it was a troll draft, but we won anyway. So like the problem is they've actually got the ultimate excuse in terms of perception management to excuse any loss. It's like, yeah, we'll try drafting him when we play them next time. Oh, he was just joking when he did that. Oh, Caps just, because it was the regular season, he just went down on that. The problem with that is, like, again, I don't think players really on the pro level, like, no one's trolling in week 2 of the fucking LEC. You troll in week 9 when, you know, you've already got your playoff spot locked and you're playing the worst team. Like, no one's actually trolling. Like, that's just a great excuse to give. And that is also, I would guess, the decisions they make, they really did think were the right decisions in the game. I bet the draft they make, they really did think that was the right pick at the time. Aside from rare examples like the Pyke one I gave of picking Pyke jungle just because it was Rift Rivals, I think they're getting away with a lot in the league. I think a lot of people, because if you notice, even though Fnatic's won every game in LEC, almost no one will say Fnatic's the best team because of this factor. Like, they all still think like, oh, that doesn't count when G2 loses somehow. What do you think on this topic, Duke?
I think it doesn't count when G2 loses. No, but for real, I think that that Fnatic, I mean that G2, it's not that they're trolling. It's just that the word is just overused and also amplified because of how Ocelot, etc. are memeing on Twitter, which I think is funny, but I think only them can do it. That's why when I hear Ocelot talking about giving lessons about trash talking, etc. Well, oh, by the way, I don't at all support Marty's things on answers to Ocelot on this topic on Twitter. But it's just that what Ocelot can do on Twitter, no one can.
Of course.
But yeah, about trolling, I think it's just that those players, like it's. Again, the chemistry of the team and the mindset of the team is super important, and each team has to find its own way to behave and to be inside the team, depending on the players that you have. For example, they have players that really love the game, that enjoy the game, and their way to express it is by having fun, which is, I guess, good for them. But the downside of it is that sometimes they won't take the game as seriously as they should be. But all that matters for them and for Grabs, I guess, is to be able to canalize this energy, to be able to have the players giving their best performance when it matters, and not care about the moment when it don't matter, because they just can't. They're not the stone cold killer that will just be try harding every game. And also you have to consider that games on stage are a different practice than games on streams, and sometimes being able to having the luxury to test things on stage is something that I would love. For example, when we played against Misfits, which is the only pure late game draft that we ever did last spring split, but we were almost troll drafting. We were Dispatch didn't really care about it much, and we knew that Misfits were not a good team, and so we kind of tried to push the limits of what we could do in this area, just for player, just to try it, and it worked. But the thing is, for us it was just luxury, but G2 they have this luxury all the time. So I think they are limit testing a lot for sure, I think that's their way as players and human beings to joke around and sometimes to fail. And for sometimes to times it's also a bit of an excuse, but it's just that it's an excuse if you consider the word trolling just in the literal definition of trolling.
Sure.
It's just that when they say they're trolling, they were just not as focused and they were not giving their best. And sometimes even if they give their best, they lose. But it's been a while since I saw them losing while giving their best, honestly. And actually, when I say a while, I would say never. I mean, for example, I don't think that their loss against Fnatic means anything. If Caps has no idea how to play the Renekton against Akali matchup level 1 and 2, well, blows, but then they shouldn't swap and they shouldn't take this matchup and think it's good. But I think they were just trying and to see what happens. But he shouldn't get solo kill at level 2.
The only time G2's ever been at a match point where they can potentially lose is game, I think, 4 versus SKT, where they're 1-2. Game 4 and Game 5 versus SKT are the only times ever for this G2 roster where they were playing for their lives. So we've only seen potentially 2 games where their backs are against the wall. And they've been playing for what? They've been playing together for 7 months. That's fucking crazy to think about.
Yeah, and I don't think they found excuses about, like, I don't think you would find any G2 player or staff member saying that they trolled during the 2 loss against SKT, for example.
I mean, they did sort of try to argue out with that draft where they picked a Zero and a Silas, but we'll put that one to one side. A lot of people made that mistake. I mean, the irony is, I thought it was hilarious because if you went into LCS after that, people were willingly picking that matchup and then getting their shit pushed in as well, which is like, well, you didn't learn from that one. Fair enough.
I mean, Azir wins against Silas though, so I maybe didn't work on stage.
Not in all the matches that everyone, not in the stage matches. Yeah, exactly. I would guess that was just a scrim thing that they thought worked. Right. The only thing is though, I actually am worried, in my opinion, for G2 when they go international again. Like everyone now just looks at the high point of their best games, and yeah, they look amazing. But I could see a world where they go to Worlds and. Like I've already seen them lose the Fongbu Bustle. They could lose to a wildcard team. I could see them playing a game where they just draft something cocky that they think they're going to be like a Flash Wolves type team, lose to them. I could see a whole bunch of work. Like the difference is, I think just like Caps the player, G2 the team has an amazing peak, but they also have they can have a ceiling, a floor that drops out of nowhere, like a trapdoor that just goes to shit. So I don't think it's as guaranteed that they're going to be as godlike.
I mean, the thing is, this low version of G2, it happens from time to time the same way that you had this high version of Vitality that happened a lot during regular season of Summer Split and Spring Split. But to which extent that you think that the low version of G2 will happen consistently in a best of 5? You saw it against SKT. Like they're able to correct and actually they adapt really well. I mean, I don't think, I don't think they will choke in a best of 5 and.
No, I'd agree in a series, but the problem is you have to go through best of 1 in international competition before you get to the best of 5s, as the old G2 knows very well. I
mean, yeah, but they will be in playoffs no matter what in Europe, if not top 2, which is really likely, and then at Worlds. I think the hardest part will be the group stage at Worlds, I guess. But they will when you are seed 1, they should have a group stage that even if they misstep a bit, they should be fine afterwards. Not saying that they will win Worlds, by the way. I think at Worlds they will have teams that will be as strong, maybe even in European playoff, maybe Fnatic, maybe us, I hope. But maybe Fnatic will be strong enough to challenge them. But at Worlds, maybe IG, maybe SKT, who knows? But I don't think they will misstep in irrelevant matches.
Dude, the team I want to see play against G2 is Griffin. I want to see that best of 5. I think that would be a fucking amazing best of 5 right now. I think that's like the ideal teams to put against them as well. Let's see how much they like that skirmishing and see how Jankos does against Tarzan. I think that'll be the fucking amazing match. I hope that happens at Worlds. At any point in the tournament. Could be the final, could be the first round. Just give me that matchup.
Oh, Duke, switching over to a different team, Misfits. Do you think Misfits is underperforming, or do you think we overrated Misfits players? Like, this is kind of the level they're supposed to be at. For Spring, it was definitely underperformance, and it was like just absolute disaster. What do you think so far for the summer? I mean, I think for me, it's always been the same story about Misfit. Like, we joke about Misfit at Splyce because
Misfits have been hyped for 1 year and a half, and we beat them almost every time we play against them. We do better than them at every season, and somehow before every split, they're hyped to be way better than us until they are terrible. So are they underrated? I mean, are they underperforming? Most likely to the eyes of everyone. For sure, they had a good roster on paper, but I don't think the roster made much sense. And I mean, the thing is, I can't trash talk openly, but there are. I think there are some players that are overrated in the roster, for sure. And I think they have some. I guess. I mean, they must have some problems how to play as a team because they have been terrible for almost 2 years now. Which, while I think they are a bit overrated, I think they should play better. So I think they are overrated, but at the same time they also play worse than what they should be doing. I don't know, but overall, I think Misfit have the potential to do, of course, really good in early game because they have really good. They are supposed to have really good laners, and they are supposed to be really aggressive in the mid game, in the early game. But at some point, they arrive in the mid game, and they just don't know how to do. They just don't know how to play the game afterwards. So I know exactly what their problem are, but and I've been pretty vocal about it to people even working with them, but I won't tell them in the show.
Okay.
Come on, Loco, give me your thoughts.
My thoughts on this is, oh man, I think there definitely was like some kind of overrating. We take names like Forg1ven, Soaz, Gorilla, Hansama, Maxlor, and like just those names together and the kind of value that it creates and the kind of expectations we have for those names, like I think is a little bit misplaced. I don't think Soaz is like absolute like the best or the second best top laner anymore. Maxlor is actually probably the biggest drop off from his name Maxlor and the actual performance. Forg1ven I actually think is okay, but he's not a standout mid anymore. I'm much more interested in Nemesis, Humanoid, like Caps and Nukeduck is a given, but after Caps and Nukeduck, like I'm much more interested in like the rookie mid laners than say Forg1ven. And Hansama has I think their bot lane's actually been one of the most problematic along with jungle. Like Gorilla Hansama just wasn't a good fit. Like I thought it would be a good fit. From what I heard from Misfits end is like Hansama is an incredibly mechanically talented AD carry and he needs someone to kind of babysit and lead him, and Gorilla would be the perfect role for that. But their synergy's kind of off, their laning's kind of off, like they just aren't functioning well together as a duo. So yeah, I think
that's pretty recent though. Like I think like they had a terrible game recently as a duo. I don't exactly remember what happened, but I remember them like kind of solo losing the game. But I think before, even in Spring Split, that were their shining light. And just about Soaz, because I know that's a lot. Like Soaz has always been, how to say, easily hated. I remember back in the days at Fnatic at Worlds, where after 1 week of at Worlds, everyone was trash talking him. The thing is, Soaz's playstyle is sometimes really he's not selfish at all, and sometimes he will, like, if the team has no direction, he will look bad. But the same way that if the team has a direction, he will look insane because he will do the play that is needed for the team. But the thing is, at the moment, there is like they are just a headless chicken, you know. So they are just running around, and in this scenario, that's not a scenario where Soaz thrives as a player, I think. While I think Soaz has been so many times in this situation where people think he's washed up, etc., and then he just comes back stronger at Worlds, for example, for Fnatic last year, and even the day before, the year before. So I think for me, Soaz is more a misuse of the player than anything.
I don't think he's washed up, but I don't think he's like the best top laner or not even the second best. Like, because that was the name where we kind of hold Soaz. We would think of him as the best top laner in Europe, but now clearly I think it's Wonder, Cabo Shard, and you can even argue Bwipo after that, depending on what form he's in. So yeah, Soaz the name doesn't carry, or like the weight it carries doesn't show in the performance.
I mean, the thing is, it's also what you expect from a player. Like the players you quoted are really good at what they are asked to do in their team, and they fit really well in their team. But again, I think a player, for example, like Soaz, could be like he would do terrible in a team like G2, for example, but he would most likely be really good. I mean, at Fnatic, I think he would be pretty.
If Fnatic right now, we'd be amazing.
Yeah, I think he would be pretty good at in a team like Fnatic, and I think he would be in a team like us. I think he would do well. I'm not trying to poach Soaz or anything. I'm really happy with Chachi, but it's like, again, a player can look terrible if he's misused, and can look super good if he's used in the proper condition. So I think, again, it's not black and white about some kind of players.
Yeah, Loco, let's go the other way on that one. Mm-hmm. So you take Wonder from G2 now, and he now has to play every game and every champion that they're giving Soaz in Misfits. He's going to have a great time, is he? Going to enjoy his life, is he, with fucking Max Law? Is that going to be a great split for him? Is he? He's going to be so confident? Is he going to be having fun? Is he going to be doing half of these picks? Definitely isn't. Mm-hmm. Like, and one of the things I think actually is overrated about the G2 players is when you have that many players who are willing to overlap champion pool and even pick things that aren't good for them individually, you can make different players look even better than they are, because everything contributes towards them looking awesome. In some of these other teams, they're playing like sports teams where it's like, it's just a job. It's like, this is my role. I do what I can. I can play these 3 things, coach. Yeah, okay, pick that for me. All right, I just play now. It's like they live in a different world. G2 lives in a fucking fantasy world. It's amazing, but if you're not on that team, it's going to be hard to ever look that good.
Oh, let's have the original discussion we wanted to have Duke here for. I think it was Doran saying Forg1ven would make C9 so much better, where Duke differed on that.
I said they would win LCS.
Okay. What's your take on that, Duke?
Oh, here's the context. You didn't set up there. Whereas Duke said that he actually thought Nisqy was more valuable. Well, he didn't actually contrast it. He just said Nisqy is a valuable player, and basically he implied for reasons other than just what you see in the survey, you know, like things he brings to the team, his morale. And the key context here is Nisqy obviously was a Splyce player last year. So there's a connection there, since Duke obviously is the coach of Splyce. So set your point up. What was your thinking there?
Duncan,
can't fit a lot in a tweet, you know.
Duncan, let's start with your point. Do you tell me why C9 would win the split with Forg1ven?
First of all, most of the times that I've seen Nisqy actually try to play like fucking super hard carry champions where you're going to pop off, like, it hasn't really worked very well. I've noticed it didn't seem like it was that good. So I notice in general, people always try to make excuses like, oh, he was just picking this like for the comp or to allow someone else to get something, which is like, okay, but if you do that, your team is basically admitting you're not like this focal point of the team. Like, if I have Uzi, I'm not doing that. I'm not picking a shit AD carry so that someone else gets a nice top lane pick. That's not the way that people draft someone like that. So generally, I would say that already is a point against you. And then if you look, for me, Nisqy was a pretty decent player. I always thought he was like above average to average in LCS minimum. Like, he always did fine, but I never saw him as some like late game carry. I think he's just an all right team player. In fact, I think most of the players in C9 are just good players. So to me, the difference is, I think if you had Forg1ven on a team specifically like that, I think they would be set up around him very, very well. He already has a nice champion pool of his own. The rest of the map's all fine. I think it would be even better in team fighting. I think they would be a better team personally.
They'd be better, but would they be win LCS better, like better than TL? That's like the big question.
They are. TSM almost won the last split. Like, it's not like it's impossible to beat Team Liquid. You know, they can happen, and I think that would be the player to do it. By the way, I'd love to see Jensen against Forg1ven. It's a pretty good matchup. What's your case against it then, Duke? What was your argument you were making?
I mean, first, the thing is also depending on what I heard from Forg1ven, but what I heard from Forg1ven is that it's a player that, I mean, I heard so many stories about Forg1ven that would never move from his lane for anything, and his gameplay kind of proves it, where he's playing a lot for him, which can be a good thing, by the way. Like, he carries a lot his team, but I don't feel like he has the pressure that he would. Like, I feel like he's scaling a lot. But I don't see him having the pressure that a player that you invest so much resources on should have, and on the map, at least on the map, not maybe on his lane. Even if I don't feel like he doesn't seem to be insanely aggressive as a laner. I think his CS is really well, but he doesn't seem super aggressive. And the problem is that I think it works in NA, but I don't see this playstyle working in Europe at all. And the other thing is, I mean, no, that's not that big. But on Nisqy, so what you say about him kind of being the catalyst of the other players because of his champion pool, there are players that have been making a really good career for themselves just doing that and being top players, like Kuro, for example. To some extent, Faker has been fulfilling this role a lot at SKT. Remember when they were just picking Galio every time, like no matter what, and just straight up winning with it. Crown, even if Crown can play a lot of other things, but when he was playing only Malzahar, this kind of stuff. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And actually, among the top mid laners, there are way more top mid laners that will only play the aggressive way than the team I would say the team play way, and where you are ready to play those kind of boring champions and you're ready to always sacrifice yourself for the team. And not every team can play with triple threats like G2 properly. And C9, they have a carry top laner with Licorice, and they have been playing a lot with Sneaky as the main team fight carry of the team. Even from what I heard, Sneaky is maybe the most vocal player on C9, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Locodoco, but for me, having Niski able to canalize and always direct the pressure towards one of those two lanes is really good. And also, I think Niski is extremely talented. He might not be at the level of the absolutely top mid laner in NA, but the thing is, I worked with this guy, and he has the best mindset and drive I've ever seen for a player. And with the talent that he has, I have no doubt that he himself can place those carry champions if he takes the time to learn them one after the other. And he does on some of his champions. Cassiopeia, for example, just watch Splyce against Vitality Spring Split playoffs last year, where he just 1v4, 1v5 Vitality and killed two of them before dying. He can do those plays, but he just needs to learn. But I think he has the mechanics for sure. And aside from it, in a team environment, having a player that will always be positive, that will not get triggered like a lot of players do, that always give his best in scrims, that will always try to communicate, always think about the game, but that's almost more valuable than anything for a coach, because sometimes just the mindset of the players can snowball to the mindset of the team and just drag the whole team down. And you guys don't see it. I mean, maybe Loco you do, but from when you hear the stories about how the teams behave together and just the dynamic just going down and totally collapsing, most of the time it's the consequence of their behavior and the personality in the team. And when you have a guy like Niski, you are pretty much immune to it. So I would take, while I'm not sure if I would take Caps over Perks, I would place all my money on Niski over Forg1ven any day.
Well, come on, Loco, stop being a pussy. What do you think?
Well, I'm a pussy because I don't defend
Froggen.
And
there's the difference.
What?
No, I never said that. I didn't hear you rushing to agree with him. That's why you're a pussy, because you won't give your actual opinion. So here's the difference, Loco.
Sure, go ahead.
Right now, he's in the chat now, so you can please him in the chat now for the next half an hour, or you can have me reference things for 10 years from now. So pick wisely. I would just say pick whichever one's real. But what's your actual opinion? Who do you take out of the two?
Who would I pick out of the two? I'd probably lean Niski, but for me, I think it's ridiculous to say C9 would win with Froggen. My little doubts about Niski is Niski's not like a new player, like as Duke said.
Can I actually get a reason as to why it's ridiculous, or do I just get your feelings only? Is this your fucking diary?
What?
Can I actually get some analysis of the league? Why is it ridiculous to say it? Come on.
Because C9's greatest strength is their flexibility and their ability to play.
Playing like 700 champions wouldn't help at all, would it? You're probably going to do that shit again where you claim like he only plays fucking his champions, and then plays Vel'Koz like 7 times. Yeah, and Vel'Koz. Yeah, and another champion.
Froggen plays his style of champions his way. He has shown some variety with Irelia, but he plays a lot of the same. He plays Lux, Anivia, Vel'Koz. These are like late game team fighting, like terrain abusing champions, long range. Like there is a certain thematic that goes with it. It's not that Froggen can't play Irelia, but Froggen's just a different player when he gets Vel'Koz, when he gets Lux.
Look at the champions he played this season. He played 3 games of Anivia, 2 games of Corki, 2 games of Irelia. I give him that. 2 games of Vel'Koz, 1 game of Lux. Like it's almost as if he's playing the same champion 8 times, and it's something that is a bit weird to me, Torin, about your. The thing is, I used to watch a lot of your podcast, and I still do, and I had this kind of the same, attachment to player like Forg1ven, Forg1ven, etc. that were like the standout players. The thing is, what is a bit weird is that you were never a fan of Rekkles and always a fan of Forg1ven, right? But then why are you a fan of Forg1ven? Because Forg1ven is just a Rekkles version of the mid lane, and
he isn't at all. He is not at all. Right?
I mean, for me,
which of Froggen's team was he ever the third threat?
Okay, no, I'm talking about more.
Well, game over. That's it. That's the role you play in the team. Then secondly,
I'm talking about playstyle.
Yeah. Then secondly, would Froggen bench himself if he couldn't play the current Meta champions? Absolutely not. That's
No, but that's not.
but that's not.
Okay.
Okay, and you know why? You know why? Because Forg1ven has only been in terrible teams for a while. But like, do you think there is a reason why he's in terrible team? Do you think he's just unlucky, or like maybe some?
I know 100% the reasons why, mate. Is first of all, like,
because he has too much money for what he's worth. That's the reason, and he always tries to go to at the latest part of the market when everyone took.
There's one reason.
The cheapest mid laners. I mean, everyone knows it, and so he comes in teams that are desperate and that have all their money to bank on one player, and they give them the whole money. And so now he ends up in teams like GGS that probably overpay him super hard, but because no one is ready to play this among the top teams, he's ready to pay the same amount of money. And
that's a shame for those like 5 other teams that finished below them, wasn't it?
No, because the thing is, if they paid this money for Forg1ven, then they can't pay the rest of the roster as good. And they can't have the same players. Like, the thing is, if you want to pay Forg1ven...
How much is Nisky? 50 cents or something? I don't think so somehow, mate. Let's compare those contracts, shall we? See who costs more. Shall we?
I don't know the exact numbers, but if I had to take a bet, I would probably say Nisky is paid a lot less than Forg1ven.
I mean, maybe... I don't know how much Forg1ven is getting paid, but I would pay more for Nisky than Forg1ven. So
anyway, complete the point. How is Forg1ven just like the Rekkles of mid lane?
Playstyle wise, I agree. You can go ahead, Duke.
It's just that talking about laning phase, since I know that it's a kind of recurring topic in the shows, especially about players like Forg1ven. Like Forg1ven is really clean about always having perfect farm, and I think that's a really good quality, and that is an underrated quality by the way among players, where people think that just farming well is granted, well it's absolutely not. I see players just missing CS all the time for no reason. I think Forg1ven is even in slightly negative matchup, even if his matchup are never negative because he takes really neutral champions anyway. He always farms super well, and he's an insane damage threat in team.
You notice Loco didn't mention any of that. Like, Loco literally basically just said Forg1ven plays things that other people aren't playing, therefore he's worse, even though logically he's admitting, use your fucking brain. Why would it be a diss to say, like, think about it, in a game where there's a very defined meta, you're criticising for someone for not only spamming meta champions, yet at the same time admitting they do very well in their position. Logically, they must be doing something better than the people playing the stuff that's the strongest. Use your brain.
So Forg1ven does play off-meta stuff, and that is definitely a strength of his, but sometimes it's at a cost because he doesn't play the on-meta stuff. Like when Akali was the most popular, when Irelia was the most popular, he still stuck to the other champions. Like, it's a strength of his and also a weakness. Like, it's a double-edged sword that you're so specialized on these champions that aren't meta.
I'd love to see GGS playing fucking Akali mid all day long. Those games are going to go great, Loco. They'll probably just win them. You're right. Yeah, you win. Here's the point that doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
First of all, the reason why the Rekkles versus Forg1ven argument will never be valid, and I'll ask you this, Duke, and if you disagree, fuck you. You can disagree, mate. I don't care. But the reason why that one never made sense is the argument used to be this, right? It was never actually like, obviously, Forg1ven versus Rekkles. It used to be Forg1ven versus Bjergsen. That was the comparison in similar fashion to Rekkles versus Forg1ven, right? The difference is this, right? I could actually even acknowledge that at the time that Bjergsen was at the top in TSM and Forg1ven was on Alliance, that in theory, Bjergsen might have been a better player. Because at that time, when you could play aggressive assassin champions, it sometimes did have more of an impact to get solo kills or to roam on the map, as opposed to farm up the Brazilian 15 CS you'd have lost and then have a team fight, because you didn't get that as often. It wasn't as much of a winning style, right? Here's the difference that never made sense to me.
Okay.
I genuinely think people who think Rekkles is a better player are on some level, like, they're on some level mentally ill. Like, they actually need to have someone study them.
Damn, are we a less now? Are we a less now?
Oh, I mean,
here's why. Listen, it's not that one was like one strong in lane, one strong in fights, one does this, one does that. No. Forg1ven is the best laning ADC maybe to ever play in the West ever. Like, unbelievably good in lane. So he's already doing the job of ADC in lane. And then in team fights, is Rekkles better than Forg1ven in team fights? Bullshit. Rekkles always had way better teams, and he was almost never even the primary carry.
So
Like,
just
the only argument, as far as I can see, you can go against Forgiven with, which is a totally legit argument, by the way. This is the one area it's fine to say Rekkles is a better player. Is Rekkles seems to be a much better teammate. He can accept self-sacrifice. He can literally, obviously,
flexible,
at times let someone else carry him in the game. Yeah, these are things Forgiven can't do. I would agree.
Yeah.
So mentality-wise, I would give the edge in that sense to Rekkles. But as a player, I never even knew what the debate was on that one. So I think the reason I'm setting that up that way is I think you've taken too light a take of my Rekkles versus Forgiven one. You've applied it to mid lane.
I mean, I did it a bit on purpose to trigger you, but the Rekkles versus Forg1ven thing. The thing is, I've been the biggest fan of Forg1ven. I started my career basically writing articles about how good was Forg1ven, and I was basically casting the H2K games with the H2K shirt back in the days when they were in semi-final at Worlds on the French broadcast. So I agree that at the time I thought, with the knowledge I had, which was pretty low to be honest, that Forg1ven was better than Rekkles out of what I could see about laning phase, etc. But again, there is so much more to the game. And at the moment, though, the thing is, as much I would love Forg1ven to be relevant, he's not anymore, and he would need just to. I mean, I literally, if you tell me is he good now or not, I have no clue. I hope he is my favorite player that ever played, I would say, to watch. And I agree that he was insane in pretty much every aspect of the game. But the thing is, he has not been played seriously for 2 years.
Oh,
so you have no idea. Is he that good? Can he adapt to the meta? Can he play mages? And also the thing is, can he be a good teammate? And for me, that's super important. And a player that, again, that's what I told to Niski, but as a coach, for me, a player that is impossible to manage during reviews, that has terrible work ethic, that has no discipline, that can't learn another way to see the game. For example, if you can't only play through bot, if you have to play through bot every game because you are Forg1ven, then your team is doomed.
It's a flaw. Yeah, of course.
So
no, my point is this, right? Basically, everyone can have this discussion now because now it's not even that ridiculous. But if you'd have said that what you just said right there back in the day, everyone would have called you an idiot, mate. They'd have gone, but look at all of Rekkles' championships, and they would just immediately invalidate everything you said.
I was literally saying it every day on stream and on the French broadcast and writing articles about it. People got mad because they are Fnatic fans, but
yeah, of course.
I would say that it was pretty common. It was something that was known by a lot of people, and at least not known because it's to some extent an opinion, but it was an opinion that was shared by a lot of people. I don't think it was that secret.
I'll give you the best example ever. So there was a few episodes ago we did a Listen Loco where we had Perks on the show, and we had this discussion about Rekkles versus Forg1ven type players, and what's the role of an AD carry in a team and stuff. And basically, cause Perks himself was I think Rekkles is really good, they were all plebs telling me, see, Perks thinks it, why don't you just listen to him? He knows better. It's you are aware, right? 99% of Forg1ven haters are just people on Reddit. If you ask the pro community, Duke knows this, if you ask the pro community privately, not on camera, they will tell you Forg1ven was an unbelievably good individual player. He was literally one of the best to ever play the game. Their opinion privately is higher than even the public consensus is. That's one of those players where, because he never won the championship, sadly, he will never get the actual credit his individual player probably deserves.
I think players like Forg1ven and Forg1ven are just so fucking specialized and so fucking good at what they're good at without being well-rounded. So yes, we can always have this argument about in this individual aspect, is Forg1ven or Forg1ven better than Rekkles and Bjergsen? And I would say yes, there's definitely comparisons if you take a certain avenue of Rekkles and compare it to Forg1ven. Forg1ven will demolish him on, and same thing for Forg1ven and Bjergsen, but it's never that way. It's always about complete package as a player, flexibility, how you are as a teammate, and so many points get taken off there, and that's why that's why they aren't held in the same regard as Rekkles and Bjergsen.
Just didn't win as many championships.
I think as much as this analysis about trophies is often biased, there is also there are two sides of the story. Of course, it doesn't mean everything, but at some point, if you don't win anything and Rekkles wins everything, if everything smells like shit around you, maybe it's just time to look under your shoes. And I think that player like Rekkles, I agree that at the time Forg1ven was better than him, but the thing is, Rekkles must be doing a lot of things right, and from what I heard about Fnatic, he does, to kind of provoke those situations. And I think he also has things that you and me can't see, but that he must be doing those things right. And
I'll
for that
explain
reason,
what it is, because it's pretty obvious. Here is the problem that people like Forg1ven and Forg1ven have, and players like Bjergsen and Rekkles do not have.
Russell Westbrook.
Because they do all the stuff that you want a teammate to do, and they have a great attitude, and they have all. I mean, I won't put work ethic in because all these players actually have amazing work ethic. If you know them, like there's no divide there. Because they do all the things, self-sacrifice. They're not cocky. They don't demand everything their way. They're players who. That is the real reason why. It's not totally invalid when you were like, why is Forg1ven being on bad teams? It's like, it's to some degree, it's partly in part cause of his reputation that follows you around. And as a result, you know what? Cloud9 probably wouldn't want him as a player even if they did think he was slightly better than Niski. They would think, yeah, but the negatives that come with it, we'll try this guy who hasn't played as long. So I will say that one of the reasons why, because here's the thing, like if we look only at players, I could make a very easy case that actually Forg1ven accomplished way more than Rekkles in the context of who his teammates were. Rekkles never had bombs like fucking Forg1ven was playing with. But the reason why I don't use that as the sole argument is because, to be fair, Forg1ven, if he hadn't have had the personality limitations, would himself have been on top teams for much of his career. Basically, once he got to the SK team, and they were already one of the best teams in the league, he should have never been on a bad team another second of his life. But he was, because he got kicked off teams and he had these problems with teammates. Whereas the difference is, I'm pretty sure it's a very positive sign that people continually stack rosters around Rekkles. That means he's probably someone you enjoy playing with. Of course they do. So as a result, in a sense, he does get some credit for some of that as well. So I don't entirely make it like put him on the other team. That's not always how it works. That is true to some degree, though. Like you can't expect the same from those players.
I mean, don't you think Forg1ven and Forg1ven has like Russell Westbrook syndrome? Like basketball is my only friend. Like that's what matters, like playing the game and like being best at the game, and they disregard other avenues, and they also don't like, they're not recruiters and like they're not great teammates to play with.
I'll give you an analogy, right? I have a friend who, I mean, I can even say who it is. It's a guy who actually works as one of the head people within the Immortals company. He's called Lurpis from CSGO, and CS 1.6 mainly. And he used to be an in-game leader for the best Finnish teams. And at one point in time, he was actually one of the early imports in esports, and he got brought over to America, and he was the leader of the Evil Geniuses CS team when they were actually the best NA team. And the thing is, this guy's main flaw as an in-game leader, because he was of course a friend of mine, was he always thought the role of leader was basically just tactician and shot caller. So all he would do was he would prepare his tactics, he would study the opponent, he would do practices with his team. In the game, he would call things, he would call what he saw as the right player. But if, for example, some player in the game just keeps fucking up the call and they can't execute the tactic right in Counter-Strike, he would just think, well, it was the correct call, so I'll make the call again. And he's just going to have to learn his job, and he's going to have to do his job. And if the player would lose and the player would maybe be emotional or something, he would think, listen, I'm not paid to be your babysitter. I'm the leader. I'm just the leader of the team. Like I just call the tactic. So basically what he missed was that actually leaders in Counter-Strike basically have all these other jobs that are more than just in the game. And it's the same thing with these players we're talking about. Someone like Forg1ven or Forg1ven, they just play their game. They do it in their solo role. They do as well as they can, exactly the way they think's correct. At the end of the game, if they lose or some team that does badly, they just go, well, fair enough. He didn't do his job, or I did my job. I'll wait till I get a better team. They kind of like, they don't take responsibility for everyone else in that sense. Whereas like, I would say a quality of leadership, I once just heard it described as like, it doesn't matter whether it's actually your fault. You have to take responsibility for it. That's the difference in mindset I would give between like a Perks and a Forg1ven.
And I fully agree on this responsibility part, but also about a player, because I was kind of pushing it a bit on Rekkles against Forg1ven. It's just this more farming in lane to be afterwards a really big threat in team fight. That's more what I wanted to say. But the thing is, especially for a mid laner, because I think it's an AD carry playstyle basically, and a lot of AD carries have this playstyle, and I think it's really rewarding for an AD carry, but I don't think it is for a mid laner, and that's why my point on Niski against Forg1ven. But like when you say he's doing his best from his perspective and from his point of view, when you are playing in teams that are pretty bad teams and you are the main carry of the team, where you can totally force your playstyle upon the team, where your playstyle is to have really strong team fighter champions, where you need to farm a lot without having much pressure on the map in the early game. I mean, maybe if everyone accepts to play that way, then you will have a perfect game. But the truth is, it's just a super suboptimal way to play the game, especially at the moment. I think the game has not been like that on the mid lane at all since like, I don't know, years. And again, for me, like as much as I would like also like I've always loved to watch Forg1ven play, because I think he has a way to play the game. And even when I was watching his streams where he has kind of a sense of timing and precision, where he doesn't need to go to do some fancy stuff, a bit like Zidane in football, you know, where he doesn't need to just move his legs like 100 times to.
Here's the analogy: if you watch Caps make a crazy outplay, half of it's the mechanics of like how did he even do that. If you ever watch Frog, and he reminds me actually, the other player who reminds me of him is Diamond Prox, because Diamond Prox never looked like he made a mechanical outplay. He just did the timing of every ability, and it looked awesome. You know?
Yeah, especially when Forg1ven does the wall stunts. When he does the wall stunts, it's so smooth.
Yeah, well, the reason why his analogy, by the way, to the French soccer player Zidane is a good one as well, is because players like that basically always feel it feels like they have like extra time on the ball than other players. Like they just never make a misplay. They're just moving. It's so smooth. It's not like they beat you with raw athleticism. You know, they're not like Ronaldo or something.
Yeah. I think it cut a bit in the end, but I got your point, and I think it's just this kind of the few steps of then is the same thing for Forg1ven, but unfortunately I think at the moment he's not really he didn't really adapt to what is modern League of Legends, but he might. I don't think the player is doomed or anything. I think he's maybe one of the most talented players that ever played in Europe. But at the moment, if you take a snapshot of the player at the moment, I would never take him over a player like Nisky again.
Well, that's ironic because he as a player is your team Splyce. And you're playing incorrectly, so you'll both be first forever. Never mind, the cutout helped you there, right? That's the end of the episode, Loco. I think we've gone as far as we can on this one. It was a good episode. We got some stuff going.
Duke, thank you so much for being on the episode. Do you have any shout-outs or any final words you want to say?
Thank you for inviting me. It was my first podcast like that. It was really cool. And shout out to the two Splyce fans on the back. And but I hope that we'll be able to deliver and kill this late game meme for real this time.
Okay. Duncan, I would ask, but I know I'm going to get flamed again, so whatever. I'll ask. Any final shout outs?
Shout out to people who aren't pussies and actually give their opinion, which you never did at any point in time.
Oh my fucking god!
So that's the end of the episode. Loco was scared.
Okay.
Hashtag Loco was scared.
Okay. All right.
Trending.
Later, guys. All right. Thank you to our gold Patreon, Butt Pounder 420, Tobias Bernasconi, and Icelandic C9 fan. Without you guys, the podcast wouldn't be possible. Like, Listen Loco is my love and joy. It is literally one of my favorite things to do in life. Like, just wake up, prepare topics, get ready to do Listen Loco. I really genuinely do enjoy doing Listen Loco. Like, I don't enjoy some of the content that I do. I do it because I know it's good for me, but Listen Loco is something I genuinely just love and enjoy doing every single day. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you to all the Patreon supporters. Thank you to everyone watching.